morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Caddick, and I'm from Augusta, Georgia, which is seriously lacking in marine wildlife, especially whales. But I've always loved them, especially the orca. I'm not quite sure where that love came from. Probably, unfortunately, SeaWorld, but it has a lasting impact on me. I am a student at Valdosta State University, which is on the border of the Georgia-Florida state line. And there I am working on my public administration degree. So I'm not a biologist or a statistician, but hopefully this presentation helps a little bit, and it's probably not very new to any of you guys. So to start off, I will be talking about what the Marine Mammal Inventory Report is, some preliminary research, what I was looking into, some of the literature review, why I selected the data on bottlenose dolphins in the first place, conclusions, recommendations, and then future research. So to begin, what is the Marine Mammal Inventory Report? I'm sure all of you in here are very familiar with it. It is part of the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972. It is a requirement to have marine mammals that is under the Secretary of Commerce be listed in this inventory report, and they have to identify their name with an identification number if they have one, the sex, estimated or actual birth, the date of the acquisition of the animal, the source for acquiring, the name of the new location, and then the date of death and perhaps cause of death. The process for gathering all this information is self-reporting. NOAA has several forms online that aquariums and zoos have to fill out, display facilities as well. They have a 30-day time frame with any changes of either receiving new individuals, acquisitions, dispositions, or transportation and transfer of that individual. Well, one of the strangest things that I found in the Marine Mammal Protection Act is usually when it states secretary, it only refers to the Secretary of Commerce, but the Marine Mammal Protection Act is very complicated and includes two other departments as well. Cetaceans are divided up into, marine mammals are divided up into three different groups. You have your cetaceans and pinnipeds, but not the walrus. And then you have the group of walrus, manatees, dugongs, polar bears, and sea otters. And then you have your third group, which is all mammals in captivity. So I wanted to, that page up. So I made this little chart. I'm not sure if you can find it somewhere else. The structure of the Federal Marine Protection Act. So what I thought was really interesting after I put it in a chart, because reading all those words was just mind-boggling, is that there are three different departments, so Department of Commerce, Department of Interior, and Department of Agriculture, that all are important to the lives of marine mammals and what we do as policy implementers. And so the Secretary of Commerce does the Group 1, which is the cetaceans and the pinnipeds, but not walruses. Then the Secretary of Interior does the other group, and then the Secretary of Agriculture, through Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, does inspects all mammals in captivity. So I wanted to know if the Marine Mammal Inventory Report could be used for statistical analysis on developing the welfare of the marine mammals. Is there a prediction for those animals that are listed there? Could we determine the effectiveness of the different types of facilities, effectiveness of new policy implementation? So was there a huge shift within that data between before 1972 and then after 1972? And then perhaps we could even see how much of a risk each transfer poses to a marine mammal. So for the literature review, animal welfare is a fairly new field, as I'm sure most of you know. It began with the 5 freedoms: freedom from thirst, hunger, and malnutrition, freedom from thermal and physical discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom from fear and distress, and freedom to express normal behavior. And many of the facilities attempt to hit these 5 freedoms, but there's obviously some areas where they're not able to hit those 5 freedoms every single time with every single individual in captivity. The Association of Zoos and Aquariums defines an animal's welfare as an animal's collective physical, mental, emotional states over a period of time, and is measured on a continuum from good to poor. So this is a pretty good definition of animal welfare, but as we have seen all morning, many of the facilities that do house marine mammals are not able to actually achieve this definition of welfare. Marine mammal welfare is even newer than terrestrial animal welfare, with Clegg and Delphinidae developing a welfare assessment on bottlenose dolphins. So as many of you guys know, the research on wild marine mammals is extremely complicated, and it is very diverse. The habitats that these marine mammals live in makes it difficult for humans to study them, and that causes another problem with the Marine Mammal Protection Act, because its protection is defined by sustainability, but we don't really know what that sustainability number is for most marine mammals. I unfortunately was not able to find any peer-reviewed literature that used the MMIR data. That could have just been a mistake on my research, but I did find that the ORCA project used it for discussing the issues that I will be presenting as well within the MMIR for ORCA specifically. And what they did is they added information that was either incorrect or unknown, and they also added all the locations of each of those ORCAs instead of just having the last facility that ORCA was listed in. So why did I choose the bottlenose dolphin? Just to let you guys know that the MMIR report that I worked with was from February 5th, 2018, and that was a blessing to get. That was extremely difficult. There are 43 species on this report, just under 7,000 different individuals. These are all live and deceased, and the majority of the species can be found in 2 groups, and that's the California sea lion and the bottlenose dolphin. And I'm a huge fan of cetaceans. Unfortunately, I don't have quite the same love for pinnipeds, so I chose bottlenose dolphins. But this is a picture of Burmy, and I visited her shortly after Blackfish. And since I am from Georgia, I was one of the biggest fans of Georgia Aquarium opening up. And then I found out about Blackfish, and then I heard that the Georgia Aquarium, this brand new facility, was listed at the 5th worst tanks for cetaceans. And I was like, no way. So we went and saw Burmy, and the experience was amazing and heartbreaking. It took her less than 1 stroke of her tail to get from one end of the tank to the other. She seemed like she didn't want to be interacting with us. She was very ruly, which I actually kind of enjoyed. She was not listening to her trainers very well. And you get to feed them gelatin, which shows that their diets are not adequate because they're not getting the water from the fish like they should be. Another thing is that 87% of cetaceans in human care around the world are bottlenose dolphins. So they are pretty much the largest. As well as with having a good statistical base, 1,810 bottlenose dolphins was a pretty good number for me to start with for 1 semester turnaround time. So there were lots of variables on this inventory report: the gender, the status, so alive, deceased, released, the origin, which is how they became in this facility, either by birth, capture, stranded, or unknown. type of facilities, I broke that down into aquariums, zoos, entertainment, other, unknown. A lot of the facilities that were listed on the inventory report are no longer open, so it was really difficult to figure out whether or not they were a dolphinarium or if they were an aquarium. Some of the other facilities were individual owners and the Navy. So what I discovered, the status of bottlenose dolphins is dependent on gender, origin, and type of facility, which I think a lot of us know just from observation. Then I decided to run a Pearson product moment correlation, and the correlation was ran to determine if there was a relationship between the origins of individuals, types of facilities, acquisition purpose, status, and length of captivity. And many of these showed that there was a correlation between the different variables at a statistical significant level of 0.05, with some reaching 0.00. I then ran a single linear regression and discovered that it could make predictions, especially on the origin of the individual, could predict the length of captivity. And then the type of facility could also predict the length of captivity. So my conclusion is maybe for all of those answers. And the reason I came up with maybe was because of my recommendations. The MMIR report, as many government reports, has some issues. First off, it only covers cetaceans and pinnipeds, minus the walrus, and NOAA is the only one who actually has to complete this report. So all other marine mammals are not listed on this report. Facility inspections are done by the Department of Agriculture, and it seems like they don't double check with the marine mammal inventory report to make sure what's listed there is accurate. So that should, become part of that process, because there are a lot of issues with the information on the MMIR, such as there's no way a dolphin could enter captivity after its death. So there's some issues with that I discovered, which I believe Orca Network probably also discovered with their Orca portion. There's also issues with the actual form that has to be filled out. They list Department of Defense as a type of facility in the MMIR, but it's not part of the options on the form. There's lots of incomplete data, such as not knowing the gender, not knowing the origin, where the dolphin came from. I guess it just appeared. And then the unknown types of facilities, so they don't even know where it's housed. A lot of the information is not submitted within the 30-day timeline, which I've seen several articles that discuss that, especially with the Arizona aquarium, where the reports of those dolphins were not presented in a timely manner. The other issue I came across is the exact definition of each category. Like what does the MMIR actually looking for when they say public facility and whatnot, or zoos, aquariums? What is their actual definition? I had to kind of make my own to interpret the data. And then the next thing is that it should be a living document. So instead of updating Burmese information showing that she became Georgia Aquariums in July 2010, but she was born in June 2007, where was she for the last those 3 years that are missing? So instead of just updating it, making it a living document, so we have all those records of that she was a SeaWorld dolphin from 2007 to 2010. So for further research is just to do more statistical analysis on the data after hopefully FOIA gets back with me about requesting those documents to see where those errors are and hopefully correcting them. And then going on to do species comparisons. as well as compare before and after policy implementations and other statistical analysis that are slightly over my head at the moment, but I'll figure them out.